So these have been running on the strong side. If we strip out autos and gas, knowing that gas prices were up about, what, 7% in May, which is a couple percent more than they were up in April. So gas station sales are going to boost this number, and indeed they did. We're expecting up 0.3. It comes out up 0.5%, and that equals where we were last month. So it's back-to-back up 0.5%. The high water mark there was February, where it was up 0.8. And finally, if we look at the control number, which is core retail sales, it is quite. So it's not so much that it's a bit lower than that. What we should look at is that it's been running pretty strong all year. We finished up last year unchanged, and the month before that up 0.2 in November. So these are rather strong numbers on the control side. And do remember there's an inflationary element, of course, in retail sales we need to pay attention to. If we look at yields, yields are hovering in a 10-year at 4.44, which is virtually unchanged. And if you look at a 2-year, 4.06, same scenario, virtually unchanged on this Fed day. And I would like to point out one thing here, and that is if we look at the oil market did briefly under 75. I believe the low is around 74.60. And I know that your guest is disappointed with what he's seen on the deal, but in the end, I can't tell you about the geopolitics here. What I can tell you is what the market's telling us. What the market's telling us is that at least some of the negative aspects of the conflict seem to be disappearing, and maybe the most overriding issue ought to be how we look at the economy outside of the conflict. If you separate it, it certainly seems as though the baseline economy is doing quite well, and that's what the market seems to be concentrating on the most. Joe, back to you.
Of 500 between depreciation and stock based. So let's call it 280. 2.8 billion would be their owner's earning. And the company is 234. Okay. So that's a 1.1% yield. It's growing 32%. 100% EBITDA. Growing 30%. Owner's earnings above 2 billion. It's amazing what these stocks are doing right now. Look at this. It's crazy. This might have not even started either. It's 234. Crazy. Wow. They have a 55% income margin. All right, I was looking at Cheniere Group, trying to figure out why their revenue dropped. Let's see if I can pull it up. So they went from 33 billion in 2022, which I assume had something to do with Ukraine, and then the revenue kept going up sequentially for the last 3 years, but gross profit dropped pretty significantly. This cost of revenue, I don't know why this is so volatile. So we're gonna ask. LNG prices spiked massively in 2022. Let's see what the prices were. This was 2025. This was the winter storm. And then what's this? I don't know why that spiked. Winter storm. October 2022. Wow. Got up to $10. Whoa. Okay, so the price of LNG is, call it, a third of what it was in 2022 peak. Okay. So if prices were, if they did 33 billion and prices were, prices are a third now what they were then, that means that if you normalize 2022, that would go from 33 billion to 11 billion because that's a third. And then their TTM, they did 21 billion of revenue, and that's 4 years, 3 years. So basically, if you were to normalize the price, I think that would, if you were to normalize the price in 2022 to $3 back on napkin math, then basically we doubled revenue since 2022 from 10 billion to 20 billion. So let's triple check that and see if they grew volume that much. So if that's the case, then they probably grew volume. Yeah, you would think they'd double volume. Let's ask. Did LNG double volume since 2022-ish? Not even close. What am I incorrect? I'm like a monkey compared to AI. Okay, says I'm close in the logic, just everything was off. AI is so funny. Okay. Oh, duh. It's because they have 80% of their stuff contracted. I'm an idiot, of course. This only would have applied to VG, maybe. But VG's even contracting everything out now. Okay, so that makes sense. Wonder what the... how do they price the long term? It's spot plus percentage. This business is incredible. They operate critical infrastructure. They get 20-year long contracts. Their profits are baked into that contract. It's spot price adjusted and inflation adjusted. That's unbelievable. Why is this not a darling? Oh, yeah. And the customers are contractually obligated to pay whether they ship or not, the take or pay terms. It's unbelievable. So they're getting 115% of Henry Hub. So they're getting 15% over spot price at Henry. So what are their gross margins? On average, I'd say this is so inconsistent. Let's see. Do they have an average here? Okay, here. Okay, 40%. Wow. I really need a 10-year margin. All right, let's say 30% gross margin. So then if that's 115%, where are they getting the other 25? So if they have gross margins above 15%, how do they? Right. So their core profit engine. So they contract the LNG out at 115%. So they have 15% there. But they charge service fees to liquefy the natural gas into LNG. And that's where they make their money. Okay. Okay. Buy. Okay, well that AI is doing that. I'll give you a little background on Cheniere because it's a pretty wild company. Let's see if we can get a picture. All right, so here's Corpus Christi. This is, I believe, their number one largest exporting plant. So literally, somewhere along here, I'm assuming in this building, they're liquefying the natural gas. Then they're pumping it. So they liquefy it by cooling it down to, I think, minus 300 degrees Fahrenheit, something very cold. And then they pump it through. And the reason they do that is because the amount of energy within gas is 600 times 600 times less dense than the LNG in the pipeline that they're freezing, because once you freeze it, it condenses. So you basically get 600 times more energy when it's frozen. So it's better for shipping. So I don't know how exactly how this works. It looks like a boat literally pulls up right here, hooks into these lines, and then they pump the gas, the LNG, into the boat, and then it takes off. I mean, it's just crazy how cool this is. Oh, okay, you're on the wrong screen. Here. So I believe it's frozen and liquefied in this. Maybe something else, I don't know, but I think it's this. Then they somewhere along this line store it. I believe they put it into these pipelines, pump it through here. I believe a ship pulls up right here. They pump it into the ship. Then the cargo ship takes off, goes to Europe or some parts of Asia. And Corpus Christi is their, I believe, number one exporter facility. All right, so let's go back here. Before we dive in, it's just so cool to look at this stuff. Just wild. Like, this is what is literally 1,000th LNG cargo milestone in 2020. That's amazing. Okay, so I believe from my research, they did 670 cargoes last year. They're celebrating their 100th or their 1,000th overall in 2020. So think about that growth. They went from hitting 1,000. This probably would have taken them, let's see how, I bet you it would have taken them 20 years. Let's ask. How long did it take LNG to hit 1,000 cargoes? How many years? Okay. All right, well, it's doing that. We also have this diagram. Really beautiful. Wow. Okay, so they're buying it from Henry Hub. And I believe they're buying it from Henry Hub at 100% because they have it contracted out ahead of time at 115%. So they know they have some safety there. And then I'm just looking at oil and gas today. Okay. So, and then it's liquefied, which is what I was showing earlier. And they're charging a fee to liquefy it. So they said the margins on that were high, but I would think that is pretty expensive to liquefy it because you need to freeze it and keep it cold. All right, we're going to ask about that. And then they deliver it to the customer. So is the end customer, let's ask, is the end customer the one who agrees with LNG to pay the 115% and also the same one who is paying for the liquefaction? I think AI spelled that wrong, didn't it? Okay, so it took Cheniere 4 years to hit its 1,000 total cargo, and that's from zero. Is that only at Corpus Christi, or is that the whole business? That doesn't make sense. Wait. This company, wait, I thought this was like, I thought this was an old company. I thought it had been exporting forever. Is that because this is such a new technology? Yeah, I thought. My buy order just triggered on Meta. Fingers crossed. Not looking great. market makes no sense. Crude oil's up, Brent's up, Exxon's down, natural gas is down, VG's up. Doesn't make any sense. To me. I'm sure it makes sense to someone smarter. Okay, let's focus. All right, no, Cheniere is not a 100-year-old legacy company. Wow. It started as an exploration company, then pivoted to importing, and then didn't export until 2016. Oh, so this thing's way more nimble than I give it credit for. Whoa. Oh my gosh, and all these trends just started. Oh my, this is crazy. When you study the history of the US industry, it's crazy. Look at this. This is crazy. We had one meaningful US LNG export facility. One in the whole US. They started exporting in the 1970s and then went out of business in 2015. At that time, the lower 48 states, which by the way are the main gas producing areas, exported essentially zero LNG before Cheniere's Sabine Pass in 2016. That's amazing. Yeah, because of course there wasn't a surplus of gas because we weren't fracking. Or sorry, fracking. Wow. Or just the general shale revolution. I am mind blown. The more I learn about this, it's crazy. So this is all brand new, and not to mention growing like crazy. Okay, so look at this is my little theory on what's happening. Okay, it appears to me. Let's skip ahead. Yeah, nat gas. I love this thesis. It's so interesting. So we're in the fastest period of US LNG export growth in US history. Well, duh, because it basically did not exist before what I just told you occurred, which was when the company called Kenai LNG went out of business in 2015, and then Cheniere pivoted from importing to exporting, stepped in and took that volume. Oh, we just had another order fill. What did we buy? Oh, just bought VG, ironically. Okay. VG's Cheniere's rival. I really want Cheniere though. Okay. Anyways, focus. Okay, so these are some of the charts. U.S. LNG exports higher than ever. Look at 2016. So this is when Cheniere, also known as LNG as a ticker, started exporting. I mean, what timing? So they rode this wave from 2016 to 2019. Now let's look at their stock chart. Let's see if we see that in their stock chart. Where's 2016? So look at that. So they were, although they probably weren't capturing a good amount. So let's see who were the top 5 exporters in North America in 2016, 2017, 2018. We'll ask AI that. So yeah, this company was lollygagging around. I mean, it was actually doing decent returns, just a small base, hard to see on this chart. But okay, so then starts getting hyped. 2016 happens. This is when it starts its exporting. It then takes 4 years for the market to wake up and realize what just happened. So let's look at its revenue from 2016. 5 billion, 7 billion, 9 billion, 9 billion, 17 billion. Yeah, so it was building a very strong base of momentum. 2016, 17, 18, 19. You can see it slowly going up. Then COVID happens, and then this thing rocket ships because prices of LNG went to $10. And then prices went down, but volume's still going up, which brings us back to the presentation. And you can see volume is higher than ever. Higher than ever. That's great. So then this chart here, you can just look at the colors. I'll explain it. Each color is a different facility coming online in the next 5 years. And some of these do take 5 years. But these are all the different export facilities that are coming online. This is a good thing for the overall market. It is potentially a bad thing for Cheniere and Venture Global. I'm not sure, but it's going to be a lot of supply, and so I'm going to watch that. But that's a good problem to have, because there's going to actually be enough demand for all that supply, and it might not even matter. It might be just like a SpaceX IPO. So much demand, it's just a splash in the bucket, even though you'd think it would suck out volume. And then here is the usage of electric power, industrial, residential power, commercial power, LNG exports, pipeline exports over the years. So you can see, let's take LNG exports, for example, which is this ugly color, brownish. Okay, so I guess it's kind of hard to see, but I mean, if we plot the top there, little higher, little higher, little higher, little higher, little higher. That's just like consistent 5% growth year over year, it looks like. And with data centers, you could argue that it might be growing even more. So at the heart of the thesis is that growth story. The U.S. is just becoming critically important for so many different countries out there, because it's supplying the LNG, which is what is burned at local power plants, and then that electricity and power is pumped to households and to businesses. So you can see all of that demand is growing, and it obviously only gets more important because of data centers. So the U.S. data center energy boom currently is using 62 gigawatts. It's forecasted over the next 5 years to more than double, so to about 130 gigawatts. If you look at all that new demand that's going to be happening, about half, the majority of it, so half of it will go to renewables, and that's things like solar, nuclear, yada yada, wind. That's going to capture the majority of the new demand, and then nat gas will capture less of the new market share. It'll only capture about 33% of the new market share, but as a whole, the overall nat gas volume will double in that same time period. So it's doubling from a significantly larger base compared to renewables, but it is expected not to capture as much. And that makes sense, because there's no debate renewables the future, but nat gas is the future, and it's also the present. And so that's important to keep in mind, I think. You can look at this chart to see where we're sending this off to. We're sending it a little bit to Asia, which is kind of gone down and up. Rest of the world, that's definitely growing, and then Europe's definitely growing, and that started growing because of the Russia stuff. You can see here, very small, and then more than doubles, and has remained elevated and is continuing to grow. So thank you, Europe, for buying. Okay, so then what happened this year? Well, Iran blew up the largest LNG complex in Qatar, and that complex happens to pump through 20% of the global LNG. So overnight, basically, the 20% of global capacity is going to be offline for 3 years. So that's a huge bottleneck on the supply side. And while the supply side's bottlenecked, the demand side is going through the roof because of all of our devices, electric cars, data centers, AI is using more on an individualized basis. And so clearly there's going to be some supply shocks where the prices spike. And we're already seeing that in Europe. The global natural gas prices in Europe are 3 to 7 times US. The reason why that's happening is because the US is producing so much oil, and since natural gas is a byproduct of oil, that some of these oil companies literally have too much natural gas that they don't know what to do with it, and they're just selling it. Sorry, not selling it. They're paying people to take it away. So it's essentially trash to them. It's trash to the United States oil and gas companies locally because there's no way to make profit on it. But to the rest of the world, it's literally the lifeline. And so, as you can see, that creates a real clear incentive that we in the US need to go help the rest of the world by exporting this stuff. And so that is the problem that companies like Cheniere and Venture Global are trying to solve. So the European pricing versus the US pricing at Henry Hub, you can see the delta is insane. I think it's come down a little bit last time I checked, but it is still significantly differentiated. And so eventually these lines will converge. And the reason these lines will converge is because we will export efficiently enough enough LNG to Europe that it will become no longer constrained. But in the meantime, that is a constraint. And so the rest of the world, looking at Strait of Hormuz, is now saying, okay, whether that thing opens up or not, we got to diversify because it's just good business. You'll see Chinese president expressed interest in purchasing more U.S. oil and natural gas. That was right after that recent Trump meeting. You'll see U.S. shipping more LNG to Asia. U.S. and Thailand speed up talks. These are all recent stories. And so you have to ask yourself which U.S. stocks benefit the most from this demand, both internationally and domestically, because there's two opportunities. Okay, so Cheniere is the clear top winner, which we've talked about a little bit. But as we just went over the story and learned, they literally had never exported LNG before 2016. And so just look at this beautiful chart. It spiked here because prices spiked, but volume has grown 5% in this time period. It's expected to keep growing. But I think that's the risk, is we should figure out. So, okay, if volume only grew 5% from 2022, how can we rely on it growing 3 to 5% year over year like the overall LNG market is? While it loads, we'll look at stocks and let's look at stocks here. Okay, looks like pretty flat. QQQs are flat, basically. Amazon's down 2%, Microsoft 2%, Meta 3%. Meta, you're killing me, dude. SMCI is getting to 28. Interesting. First Solar, Venture Global. It's interesting. Okay. So not a real exciting market. Kind of flat. SpaceX sinks 5%. I mean, that's obvious. Obviously, when the stuff starts to get online, the supply will increase and the stock will go down. There's no question. Wow, Robinhood's ripping. Ugh. Can't stand when I do that. I'm like, oh, I'll buy it when it goes down. Then it goes down. I go, I don't know, I'll wait more. And then it goes up. It just drives me crazy. Look at this thing. It's ripping. No FOMO. I'm just going to look at something else. 2 o'clock today is the rate decision. That'll be really... Personally, what do I think? I think clearly the guy is going to go out there so dovish. I mean, if I had to bet, I'm not really betting heavy on it. If I had to bet, I got to imagine that he's not going to be hawkish. That unfortunately is out of the question in my head. Okay, so why only 5% volume growth for Cheniere over those 3 years? So it already had its existing trains running at Sabine Pass and Corpus Christi, and its trains are the export terminals. Okay, so it's already at 90% utilization. So there's no more growth left at Sabine and Corpus. So those were just at maintenance cost. So let's see. Okay, so how much did they spend in CapEx in 2022? Were they expanding? You can see 2022. So they invested heavy in CapEx to ramp up those 2 facilities here. So that cost them 10, 13, that's about 15 billion. Okay. So 15 billion to get those 2 going at full capacity. And then they dropped down their CapEx pretty significantly. Very significantly, actually. You could even argue through 2024. So 4 years on, 4 years off, and then they're ramping it up now. So what does Venture Global spend on CapEx? It's got to be way more. Yeah, way more. Oh my gosh. They went from 2 to 4 to 8 to 13. These people are nuts. I can't believe how aggressive they're trying to go. Just has so much debt to do this. 35. I mean, it's got 35. Cheniere has 25, I want to say. Let's triple check that. Yeah, 26. It's not like Venture Global has that much more debt. What are their market caps? 48. And what? 48 and what? And 27. So VG has 10 billion more of net debt and 20 billion less of market cap. So the enterprise value for Venture Global is 60, call it, which would make Cheniere, 75-ish? So I'm using ballpark. Yeah, 2075. Okay. Oh, something got filled. Wow, all these orders are hitting. Bought Meta at 580. Yeesh. Okay, come on, Meta. Come on, baby. Turn around. Dave's below 300 again. Let's pick up a little bit. We'll give it a... Okay, focus. Okay, so 75 versus 60 on enterprise value. And then I don't even know if Venture Global really has justifiable owner's earnings. That's sick. How is its depreciation only $1 billion? It should be way more than that. Okay, so where's the don't they pay out minority interest somewhere? Is that in other activities? All right, let's skip that for now. Okay, so VG, LNG. All right, VG we're saying 60 enterprise value. LNG we're saying 75 enterprise value. And then billion. So let's say owner's earnings for Venture Global is somewhere between three to 5 billion. Depends what that other activities are. We'll look that up after. All right, and then for LNG, owner's earnings are $1.5, 4.5. Let's call it. Interesting. Okay. That's I'd say it's like 3.8 billion owners earnings. So is there a world where Venture Global has more owners earnings than LNG? Okay, and then so Venture, so let's say VG, then they turn around, they put $3 billion into CapEx. And $3 billion into buybacks. Common dividends paid. Okay, 500 million dividends. Oh, this is LNG. Okay, and they issued debt. Okay. Maybe there's a better way to play this. All right, this is VG. So Venture Global has stronger owners' earnings, but significantly negative actual cash flows. $7 billion from ops, and then they pumped 13 into capex. And they issued $16 billion of debt. Oh my gosh. I mean, let's say they average $4 billion from ops here. So are they about to average around this $6 billion for the next 3 years? 50% jump up? Probably even more than that. Just such an ugly stock chart versus this one. Look at this. This thing's beautiful. There's the 5-year. There's the 10-year. There's the max. Just all up and to the right. They averaged 30% revenue growth year over year as their 5-year average. Okay. Yeah, that's misleading though. These are hard businesses to value. They really are. Versus one like this, which is just such an obvious, easy one to value. They do 120 this year. Revenues, let's say if it's 120, let's say their costs are everyone up to 50, so they still clear 70 gross. They're not going to spend more than 30. So I would say at least they're making 40 million profit next year, which is, look at the history of the operating income. I think they're going to make 20, 30, 40 million next year. It's pretty reliable that they're going to have their 100 million plus revenue, because I think 80% of it comes from military, and it's their first year selling antimony into the military. So it should be a big business versus this one. Just, I don't know. How is this market not turned around today? What is going on? I can't believe people are so scared of this whole thing. All right, let's go back here. All right, so anyway, so back to our presentation. So it's a good business. They're hard to value, and yet they're not, because I think as long as you believe that this LNG exporting trend's continuing, they're going to have good opportunity. Venture Global, same thing. Critical infrastructure. They have support of Presidente, and they are also shifting to a long-term contracting model. So both of these companies are critical to the U.S. They're both trading slightly out of favor. But you could also argue that it was 41% overvalued when it was last at its high. But other than the debt, the numbers look good. And they went from 0 to 5 billion operating cash flow in 5 years. It's pretty astounding. We were just looking at that here. So, well, negative to 6 billion. So 0 to 5 is actually understating it in some ways. And I don't know. I mean, if they're really doing the 5%, if they're really doing, we said 3 to 5% owners earning, 3 to 5 billion owners earning. So let's say they did 4 billion, and their enterprise value, we said, is 60, I believe. Yeah, 60. So 4, 6, 2, 3, 6. So they should have about a 6.6% yield. Is that correct? On enterprise value, but on their actual equity, which is a better way to value that. 27. I don't know. I mean, even if we use our low end owners earnings of 3 billion, that's still a 10% plus owners earning yield. It's not a full buy signal, but it's very interesting. Can also mean that this thing is just absolutely out of favor. And if you look at how it's traded for 5 years, it does look like that. Well, really only a year because it IPO'd around here. Although it's kind of back to its IPO price now. This was January. Well, okay, 25. Not really. I don't know. It's a tough one. This one just seems easier. Oh, well, that one definitely does, but I meant LNG just seems easier. All right, Meta is just killing me. What is it doing? Oh my gosh. I doubled my position in Meta today at 580 a share. I don't know. Okay. Whoa. You know how earlier I was saying I thought that growth from 2022 to 2025 would have been volume related for LNG, Cheniere Group? I think Cheniere is the better quality business. Look at this. It's growing its export tons 10 to 15% from last year, from 46 million to 51 plus. Okay, and the reason for that is because they've had demand this whole time for this. They knew that clearly because they've been running at full capacity with their other facilities. And so they started building stage 3 of Corpus Christi, which is their big export facility. And they added 4 trains, which are the export terminals, plus more coming online. So everything, so this is like a data center. Everything they build, they're selling. I don't think people realize what is going on with this LNG. This stuff is like equal to AI. Everything they build, they sell right away. They sell it before they build it, and they lease it out for 20 years contractually. It's amazing. It's really amazing. Okay. I have a feeling this market's going to turn up today. I'm sure I'm wrong, but I just think Kevin Warsh is going to be so out of the way. He seems to just want to do his thing, not worry the market. I don't think he likes attention. I think he just wants to do the job. But we're going to see. What? Why is this? Just pulled up my prime investment memo. Western Digital's up another 7%. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Okay. Okay. We're going to go through this. So those 4 trains we just talked about, that is the stage 3 at Corpus Christi. So those are 95% complete. And then they're doing, so this one, they haven't really done that much work out. Okay. Oh yeah, I think LNG is or I think Cheniere is investment grade, right? As a business. There's no way VG is even. They're probably trash. Yeah, B plus. Okay. Whereas this is a BB B plus. Okay. Honestly, all of this pales in comparison to UAMI. Oh, I think I should double my Spotify position here. It's down 10% from where I bought it. And here, I'll put in a buy order for a little less, see if I can get it. Okay, that's good. I got 5 in First Solar. Has First Solar ever really gone below this 260? Pretty chart when you look at it like that. Okay, so it could come back to this line, break through it, but it already kind of did that. This thing's fully reliant on the 45X tax credits and any news there is around tariffs and solar and things of that sort. I personally think there's just no way that we can afford not to help solar in the U.S. It's so important for energy. There's natural gas, there's solar, nuclear is far behind. I think we've got to lean in on this. Both of them. There's not one or the other. Got to lean in on both. It's gone on these beautiful runs. So this was 720, this was 520, and this was 520. Right. So it reminds people on its earnings. So it does really well on earnings. Let's see what its next earnings are. Oh. 728. Okay. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Natural gas still down. This market's just going to chop all day till this meeting. Oh, I like this antimony so much. Okay. Let's see. Let's get a... Okay. This is one of my favorite exercises to do, is trace something through the entire supply chain. So I asked Claude, can you put together a report for me on the global U.S. versus global antimony supply and demand and pricing and major supplier, et cetera. I want to understand, where is the antimony coming from? Who takes it out? Who processes it? How's it moved? I want the entire supply chain. So I'll get a basic intro here and then we'll go through it. But the way that I currently understand it, at least in the context of UAMY, they source antimony, they buy it from around the globe, and then they process it in the US. And I believe they used to send it up to Canada, something along those lines, and then have cut out the middleman. Let's confirm what that is. So historically, UAMY's Montana smelter bought a large portion of its antimony from Canada. Okay, gotcha. So now instead of buying it from Canada, they're going to produce it themselves, I believe. Yes, they're going to produce it in Montana. And then I believe Thompson Falls is right next to their mining operation. And so they'll just literally pass it over to the smelter and smelt it. I just watched a documentary on their expansion to Alaska today. That looks like it's going strong. Oh, and they do own property in Canada. Still waiting. I just bought some more Chenier. It hasn't traded in the 220s for like 3 years. It's done so much growth since then. All right, so they restarted their ore mining in October 2025, but really just ramped it up last month-ish. %80 capacity by July 2026. Wow. With all 9 furnaces up, that's a huge catalyst. And I think most of that is going to be sold to the military, if I am correct. I listened to the earnings call last night. Confident, very confident CEO that they're going to hit this 100, which for context would be insane because look at what they did here. Revenues went 8, 14, 40, and now 100 plus. Come on. Such a good company. Fuck. All right. Okay. I really like the company. of the 100+ million they're going to do, 75 plus of it is expected to be from government or military. And then if you look at the list of critical minerals, watch this. What was the top 3 most critical minerals listed by government?